The card reader beeped. Once, twice, then that apologetic little error tone that somehow manages to sound both mechanical and embarrassed at the same time. Declined. I watched my husband's face as he stared at the payment terminal like it had personally insulted him. We were at Belmont's, this upscale Italian place downtown with the exposed brick and the wine list that requires a sommelier to translate. Marcus had chosen it. Marcus always chose the restaurants when we went out, which wasn't often, but when we did, he made a show of it. The good suit. The casual way he'd order wine without looking at the price. The performance of success. He pulled the card back, examined it like maybe there was something wrong with the magnetic strip, then slid it through again. Slower this time, as if speed had been the issue. Declined. I could see the waiter shifting his weight, trying to figure out where to look. The couple at the table next to ours had gone quiet. You know that specific silence when strangers are pretending not to notice something awkward, but are absolutely paying attention to every second of it. Marcus's neck was getting red. That tell he's had since I've known him, the one that starts at his collar and creeps up when he's angry or embarrassed or both. He cleared his throat and pulled out a different card. The Visa, I think, maybe the Discover. He had so many I'd lost track. Third time's the charm, right? Declined. The waiter opened his mouth, probably to suggest calling the credit card company, but I was already reaching for my phone. My hand was steady. Funny that. You'd think after everything, after months of planning and preparation and telling myself this moment would come, that I'd be shaking. Nervous. Something. I wasn't. I opened the payment app, the one I'd set up 8 months ago on an account he didn't know existed, and held my phone to the reader. The screen glowed. The reader chimed, bright and cheerful. Approved. $387.50. For just a second, the screen showed my available balance before the confirmation page loaded. $86,347.29. I didn't try to hide it. I wanted him to see. The look on his face, I wish I could paint it, hang it on a wall somewhere. Shock doesn't really cover it. Confusion, definitely. The dawning horror of someone who's just realized the script has been flipped and he's no longer reading from the right page. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. I picked up my purse, left cash on the table for the waiter because none of this was his fault, and walked out. Behind me, I heard Marcus say my name. Not loud, almost a question, but I didn't stop. Didn't turn around, just kept walking, and with every step I felt lighter. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You want to know how we got here? How a wife who supposedly couldn't survive without her husband ended up paying for dinner while his cards declined one after another in front of a restaurant full of witnesses. How I went from asking permission to buy groceries to walking out of my marriage with more money in my personal account than he'd seen in 6 months. It started 3 months before that dinner. 3 months before the card reader delivered the most satisfying beep I've ever heard in my life. It started with a receipt. I found it in his jacket pocket. I wasn't snooping, not really. I was taking his suit to the dry cleaner because that was one of my jobs, part of the division of labor in our marriage. He worked. I managed the house. He earned. I spent responsibly within the budgets he set, with the allowance he gave me. God, even saying it now makes my skin crawl. The receipt was from Cartier, $3,200. My first thought, and I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, was excitement. It was close to our anniversary. Maybe he'd done something romantic, something extravagant. We'd been fighting more lately. Maybe this was an olive branch wrapped in a little blue box. I smoothed out the receipt and read it again. Bracelet, white gold, engraved. He'd never given me engraved jewelry before. I felt something flutter in my chest. Hope, maybe, or the memory of hope from back when I still expected good things from him. When he got home that night, I mentioned it. Carefully. I'd learned to be careful. I said I'd found a receipt, and was it something I should be excited about? The way his expression changed. It was like watching shutters slam down over a window. He asked me why I was going through his pockets. I explained about the dry cleaning. He said I should have emptied them without looking. I said the receipt literally fell out, Marcus. I wasn't conducting an investigation. That's when he pivoted. Pivoted. That's the word, isn't it? When someone smoothly redirects an argument so you end up defending yourself for something you didn't even do. He said it was a client gift. Company policy, for closing a big deal. I nodded. That made sense. Except I knew his company policy. Gifts over $500 have to be approved by compliance and purchased through corporate accounts. This was his personal Amex. When I pointed that out, he got angry. Not yelling angry, cold angry. The kind where his voice gets very quiet and every word is clipped and precise. He asked me if I was calling him a liar. He asked if I realized how insulting it was that I was interrogating him when he worked 60-hour weeks to provide for me. He asked if I'd forgotten that without him, I wouldn't have this house, this life, this security. Then he said it. You'll never survive without me. Not like a concern, not like a loving husband worried about his wife's well-being, like a fact, like gravity or taxes. You will never survive without me. You don't know how, you can't. And then he went further. He itemized it. Do you even know what our mortgage payment is? Do you know how much our insurance costs? Your little consulting work, that's hobby money. That's grocery money. I'm the reason we have this life. I'm the reason you can buy organic vegetables and get your hair done and have lunch with your sister. I provide all of this. I stood there in our kitchen, the kitchen with the marble countertops that my inheritance paid for, and I listened to him explain my own incompetence to me. He brought up every tiny financial mistake I'd made in the past 2 years. The bank fee from when I overdrafted by $12 because he'd moved money without telling me. The grocery trip that went $40 over budget because everything was more expensive and I didn't want to put food back at the register like I was rationing during a depression. The book I'd bought without asking first. His mother was visiting that weekend. She was in the living room, definitely within earshot, and he raised his voice just enough to make sure she heard when he said, "You'd be homeless without me. You know that, right? You can't make it on your own." And his mother, when she came into the kitchen a few minutes later, touched his shoulder and told him he was so patient. Patient. I went upstairs. I didn't cry. I think I was beyond crying. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at my hands and tried to remember who I used to be. Because I wasn't always this person. This woman who asked permission to spend money she'd earned. This woman whose card got declined at a coffee shop because her husband moved funds around without warning her. This woman who had a weekly allowance meeting like a teenager negotiating for gas money. 7 years ago, I was a marketing director. I had a salary, a good one. I signed contracts. I managed campaigns. I wore heels to work and made decisions that affected budgets 10 times larger than anything Marcus ever touched. When we got married, I made more than he did. Then I got pregnant. Then he got a promotion. Then we had the conversation, the one that felt collaborative at the time, about how expensive childcare was and how much travel my job required and wouldn't it be better, just for a few years, if I scaled back. I went part-time, then freelance, then mostly not working, just the occasional project when an old client reached out. And somewhere in there, Marcus took over the finances. He framed it as help. "Baby, you've got so much on your plate. Let me handle the bills, the accounts, the investments. You just focus on the house and the family. I'll take care of the money stuff." It felt like partnership. It became permission slips. Can I buy a birthday gift for my sister? Can I get new running shoes? The grocery budget is tight this week. Can we adjust it? Every purchase over $50 required a conversation. He had an app on his phone that tracked our joint credit card in real time. He'd get notifications. I'd be at Target and my phone would buzz with a text. "Do we really need to spend $70 at Target right now?" We had weekly money meetings. He'd go through the credit card statement line by line. He'd ask me to justify things. $8 at Starbucks, was that really necessary? Couldn't I make coffee at home? $30 at the bookstore, didn't we have a library card? I started using the library. I started making coffee at home. I started getting quieter. My mom noticed at Christmas 2 years ago. We were helping with dishes and she asked, very quietly, if I had my own bank account. Just my own account, separate from Marcus, just in case. Just in case of what, I'd asked. Just in case, she'd said. I told her no, everything was joint, everything was shared. That's what marriage was, right? Sharing. She dried a plate in silence and didn't push it, but I saw the look on her face. I thought about that look a lot in the 2 years between that Christmas and the receipt. I thought about a lot of things, lying awake the night after Marcus told me I'd never survive without him. I thought about the fact that the down payment on our house came from my inheritance when my grandmother died. $60,000. I thought about how the car he drove was financed in both our names because his credit score wasn't high enough to get the good interest rate, but mine was. I thought about how I'd been the one contributing to my retirement account consistently for the first 5 years of our marriage, while he cashed his out early to invest in some startup that tanked. I thought about how my consulting work, my hobby money, had paid for every vacation we'd taken in the past 3 years. And I thought about that Cartier receipt, $3,200, engraved, for someone who wasn't me. You'll never survive without me. Lying there in the dark, listening to him snore beside me, I made a decision. I was going to survive. And then I was going to prove it. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I called my old boss. Her name was Jennifer, and when I'd left to go freelance, she'd told me the door was always open. At the time, I'd smiled and nodded and thought that was just something people said. The professional equivalent of let's do lunch sometime. My hands were shaking when I dialed. It was 8:30 in the morning. Marcus had already left for work, his coffee mug still in the sink because putting it in the dishwasher was apparently not part of his providing duties. Jennifer answered on the second ring. When I said my name, there was this pause, and then, oh my God, I was literally just thinking about you. We're drowning over here. How would you feel about coming back? Even part-time, even freelance, I will take whatever I can get. I had to sit down. We talked for 45 minutes. She needed someone to lead a campaign for a new client, 3-month contract to start, possibility of full-time after that. The rate she quoted was more than I'd made on all my freelance projects in the past year combined. When I hung up, I went to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked. I'd gotten used to just glancing, checking that I looked acceptable, inoffensive, small. But I made myself stand there and hold my own gaze. I was 38 years old. I had a degree from a good school and 10 years of experience in a competitive field. I'd managed teams. I'd won awards. I'd been good at what I did. I was still good at what I did. Marcus had just convinced me I wasn't. I spent that afternoon on my laptop, opened a new browser window in incognito mode, which felt ridiculous and necessary at the same time. Searched for banks that would let me open an account entirely online. It took 20 minutes. Name, social security number, employment information. I listed the freelance work. Initial deposit, pulled from PayPal where I'd been keeping the payments from my sporadic projects. $218. When the confirmation screen loaded, I felt like I'd just committed a crime. My heart was racing. I kept looking at the door like Marcus was going to walk in even though he wouldn't be home for hours. But I'd done it. Account number, routing number, debit card on the way, an account he didn't know about, couldn't access, couldn't monitor. It felt like planting a flag on territory I'd forgotten I owned. The next call was harder. I Googled divorce lawyers in our city, read reviews, found one whose website had a whole section on financial abuse. The phrase made me uncomfortable. Abuse felt like too strong a word for what was happening to me. Abuse was hitting, screaming, obvious violence. But there was a checklist on the website. Does your partner control access to bank accounts? Does your partner require you to ask permission for purchases? Does your partner use money as a way to limit your independence? Does your partner tell you you're financially incompetent? I'd checked every box before I even realized I was doing it. I called, told the receptionist my name, that I wanted a consultation, that I wasn't sure if I was ready to file for anything, but I needed to understand my options. Her voice was kind. She didn't sound surprised or shocked or judgmental. She just said, "You're not the first. You won't be the last. And you're doing the right thing by calling." I booked an appointment for the following week. Marcus thought I was having lunch with my sister. That night at dinner, he was in a good mood. He'd closed some deal at work. He told me about it in that way he had, where every story positioned him as the smartest person in the room. I nodded, made the right sounds at the right times, asked questions. I'd gotten very good at asking questions that made him feel intelligent. He didn't ask about my day. He never asked about my day. After he went to bed, I stayed up and Googled financial abuse some more. Read forums. Read stories from other women. Saw my own life reflected back at me in 100 different variations. One comment stuck with me. Someone had written, "The day I realized I wasn't protecting my marriage by staying small, I was just making myself easier to control. That was the day I started protecting myself instead." I read it 3 times, screenshot it, looked at it every day for a week. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. Because before I could protect myself, before I could build an escape route, I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. I needed to see the full picture of our finances, the real one, not the carefully curated version Marcus showed me during our weekly meetings. It took me 3 days to work up the courage. He'd locked me out, but the thing about being married is that legally, those accounts were half mine. I was an authorized user. I had every right to access them. I just hadn't exercised that right in so long. I'd forgotten I had it. Tuesday afternoon, Marcus was at work, and I opened my laptop, went to our bank's website, realized I didn't know the login information. He'd always handled it. But the username was his email, and the password reset went to that same email, which I did know the password for because we'd set it up together years ago, and he'd never changed it. 10 minutes later, I was in. I started downloading statements, 6 months worth. Checking account, savings account, the credit cards I knew about. Exported everything to spreadsheets because that's what I'd done in my old life, when I was the kind of person who managed budgets and tracked campaigns and knew how to make data tell a story. The story this data told made me nauseous. $300 in cash withdrawals every single week from the ATM near his office. $1,800 a month minimum just gone. I'd never seen that money, didn't know where it went. Venmo payments to someone named A. Simmons. $50 here, $100 there, always with little inside jokes as descriptions. Lunch on me. Thanks for last night. You're the best. Hotel charges. Not the Marriott where his company had a corporate rate and where he was supposed to stay on business trips. Boutique places. The kind with rooftop bars and luxury sheets and names like the Monroe or the Ashland. I cross-referenced the dates with his work calendar. We had a shared family calendar, and he'd always been meticulous about putting his travel on it. Half the hotel charges didn't match business trips. I opened a new tab, went to Instagram, looked at his recent follows. There she was, Ashley Simmons, 28 years old according to her profile, long dark hair, that specific kind of aesthetic that's carefully curated to look effortless. Cocktails and brunch and candid, photos that definitely weren't candid. Her most recent post was from 4 days ago. Rooftop bar, golden hour lighting, caption about celebrating the little things. Tagged location, the Monroe. The same hotel that showed up on our credit card statement from that weekend. The weekend Marcus said he was in Baltimore for a conference. I sat there staring at my screen, waiting to feel something. Rage, maybe, heartbreak. What I felt was vindicated. I kept digging. Found credit card statements I didn't recognize. Apparently we had a Discover card I'd never seen. $42,000 in debt. The purchases were a mix of normal stuff and expenses I didn't recognize. Cash advances, balance transfers. That hotel with Ashley definitely showed up here too. Then I found something that made my hands go cold. Our car, the SUV Marcus drove, the one he'd bought 18 months ago. I pulled up the financing documents from the email archive. Both our names, both our signatures. But when I looked at the credit application, the approval had been based almost entirely on my credit score. His was listed as 620. Mine was 780. We'd only qualified for the loan because of me. The house, I pulled up those documents next. The down payment, $60,000, had come from my inheritance. It was documented right there in the closing paperwork. Gift funds from estate of Alina Morrison, my grandmother, to me, then transferred to the joint account for closing. I'd known that, but seeing it in black and white, next to Marcus's lecture about how he was the provider, how I'd be homeless without him, I started laughing. Sitting alone in my living room, looking at a spreadsheet that proved my husband had been lying to me about our entire financial reality while sleeping with a woman young enough to be carded at bars. It wasn't a happy laugh. I called the Cartier store. I don't even know what I was thinking. Maybe that I needed one more piece of confirmation, one more nail in a coffin that already had plenty. I used my sweetest voice. Said I was following up on a purchase my husband had made. I just wanted to confirm the engraving had been correct because it was a surprise, and I didn't want to ruin it by asking him directly. The woman on the phone was so helpful. Checked the receipt number I read off. "Oh yes," she said. "Let me just confirm. 2A Forever M, is that correct?" I said yes, said thank you, said it was perfect, hung up. 2A Forever M. I sat in my car in the grocery store parking lot because I'd told Marcus I was getting groceries and I needed my story to match reality. I sat there and I laughed until I cried, and then I cried until I was empty. Then I went inside and bought groceries, stayed under budget, took a photo of the receipt like I always did so I could account for every dollar at our next money meeting. But while I was doing it, while I was playing the role of the wife who needed managing, I was thinking about those spreadsheets on my laptop. Marcus wasn't my provider. I was his. My credit had bought his car. My inheritance had bought our house. My retirement contributions were healthy and consistent, while his account had been cashed out and gambled away. My consulting money had funded our vacations. And he'd taken all of that, my competence and my contributions and my money, and he'd used it to build a cage. Then he'd convinced me the cage was protection. "You'll never survive without me." But the numbers didn't lie. The spreadsheets told a different story. He was surviving because of me. And the moment I stopped letting him, his whole carefully constructed illusion was going to collapse. I just had to be smart about it, patient, strategic. I had to build my exit so carefully that by the time he realized what was happening, I'd already be gone. That night, I accepted Jennifer's job offer, signed the contract. 3-month project, starting immediately with the possibility of full-time after that. I didn't tell Marcus. He asked how my day was, which was unusual enough that it caught me off guard. I said fine. He didn't ask for details, just nodded and went back to his phone. I wondered if he was texting Ashley, wondered if she knew he was married, wondered if she cared. Then I realized I didn't actually care if she knew. This wasn't about her. She was a symptom, not the disease. The disease was a man who'd spent years making me feel small so he could feel big, who'd taken my money and my credit and my competence and repackaged it as his provision, who'd convinced me I was lucky he tolerated me. I wasn't lucky. I was done. The job with Jennifer started the following Monday. I worked from home, which meant I could do it while Marcus was at the office, and he'd never know the difference. As far as he was concerned, I was doing the same thing I always did. Laundry, errands, maybe a little freelance project here and there for hobby money. He had no idea I was running a full marketing campaign for a client with a 6-figure budget. The first payment hit my secret account 2 weeks later, $12,000. I watched the balance update on my phone and felt something shift in my chest. Not quite hope, more like possibility. I set a budget for myself, bare minimum living expenses. What would I need to live on my own for 3 months while I got settled? Rent, utilities, groceries, gas, insurance. I calculated it down to the dollar. Everything above that minimum went into savings. Every single dollar. Marcus never noticed. Why would he? He wasn't tracking money coming into an account he didn't know existed. He was too busy tracking money going out of the accounts he controlled. I was careful, meticulous. I didn't change my spending patterns at all. Still took photos of grocery receipts. Still asked permission for purchases over $50. Still showed up to our weekly money meetings and let him lecture me about $8 coffees. I played the role I'd been playing for years. The only difference was now I knew it was a role. And I was planning my exit. Every document I could find, I copied. Tax returns for the past 7 years, mortgage statements, loan documents, the title to the house to both cars, insurance policies, his pay stubs when I could get them, bank statements going back as far as the online system would let me download. I bought a thumb drive with cash, kept it in my gym bag, buried under sports bras and yoga pants Marcus would never touch. I met with the divorce lawyer 3 times over those first 2 months. Her name was Patricia, and she was exactly the kind of person I needed. Mid-50s, sharp suit, sharper mind. She didn't waste time on sympathy, just laid out the facts. California was a community property state. Assets acquired during the marriage got split 50-50, generally. But debts, too. That $42,000 in credit card debt, technically half mine even though I'd never used the card, never even known it existed. Unless we could prove he'd been hiding assets or spending marital funds on an affair. Then we could argue for a different split. Reimbursement for my separate property, the inheritance that went into the down payment, a larger share of the equity. Patricia asked if I had proof of the affair. I showed her the spreadsheets, the hotel receipts, the Venmo payments, the Instagram posts with locations matching the credit card charges. She smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who'd just been handed a winning hand. Start documenting everything, she said. Every conversation about money. Every time he denies you access to information. Every time he tells you you're not capable. Write it down, date it, be specific. I bought a journal, kept it in my car, started writing. The work with Jennifer expanded. The 3-month project turned into a proposal for full-time. Creative director position. Salary, benefits, the whole package. The number she quoted made me feel dizzy. I accepted. Gave her a start date 3 months out. Enough time to finish the project I was on. Enough time to get everything else in order. Enough time to make sure that when I left clean. My secret account grew. 25,000, 40,000, 50. Every payment from Jennifer's firm, every old client who reached out for freelance work, it all went into that account. My account. I started looking at apartments online. 1 bedrooms in decent neighborhoods. I knew what I could afford now. It wasn't the house with the marble counters and the mortgage my inheritance had funded. But it would be mine, just mine. I told my sister, told my best friend Claire, swore them both to secrecy. They became my counsel, my sounding board, the people I called when I needed to remember I wasn't crazy. Because Marcus was good at making me feel crazy. Like the time I mentioned, I'd been thinking about going back to work full-time, just theoretically, and he'd spent 20 minutes listing all the reasons I'd fail. You've been out of the industry too long. Technology has changed. You don't have the stamina for that kind of schedule anymore. It would be embarrassing to try and not get hired. I'd nodded and agreed and dropped it. But that night, I'd updated my LinkedIn profile. Added the work I was doing for Jennifer, vague enough not to raise questions but specific enough to show I was active, relevant, current. 3 former colleagues reached out within a week. One asked if I was looking for work, said their company was hearing and I'd be perfect. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't obsolete, I wasn't incapable. I'd just been living with someone who needed me to believe I was all those things. By month 6, I had $60,000 in my private account. I'd consulted with Patricia 4 times. We had a strategy. I had copies of every financial document, evidence of the affair, documentation of his financial control. I had an apartment picked out. Hadn't signed a lease yet, but I'd done a walkthrough, talked to the landlord, knew I could move in with 30 days' notice. I had a safety deposit box at a bank across town with copies of everything. Had a bag packed in the trunk of my car with clothes, toiletries, medications, irreplaceable photos, just in case. I was ready. I just needed the right moment. The moment came, ironically, from him. I'd started testing boundaries in small ways. Nothing dramatic, just stopping the behaviors I'd learned over years of training. The weekly money meeting. I just didn't show up one Thursday. I was in the living room reading when he came home with his printout of the credit card statement. He looked confused. "Aren't we doing the budget review?" he asked. I looked up from my book, said, "I'm good. You can review it if you want." He stood there, clearly thrown. "What do you mean you're good?" "I mean I know what I spent. I was there when I spent it. I don't need to review it." "But we always review it together," he said. Together meaning he reviewed it and I apologized for line items. "I don't want it tonight," I said, and went back to my book. I could feel him staring at me, waiting for me to fold, to apologize, to get up and follow him to the kitchen table like I always did. I didn't. He walked away. I heard him in the kitchen, papers rustling, waited for the explosion. It didn't come. Score 1 for boundary setting. The mail was next. He'd been opening all of it for years, sorting it, deciding what I needed to see. I started getting to the mailbox first, opened my own letters. When he asked where the mail was, I said I already got it. "What came for me?" "Some things. I handled it." The confusion on his face was almost funny. "What things?" "Just some things, Marcus. Nothing you need to worry about." His jaw tightened, but he didn't push. Then there was the money. I went into our joint savings account, the one with both our names, and transferred half to a different savings account, also with both our names, but one that required dual signatures for withdrawals. Patricia had walked me through it. It was completely legal, community property. I was protecting my half, not stealing his. When he discovered it, he lost his mind. I was folding laundry when he stormed in, laptop in hand, shaking. "What the hell is this?" he demanded. Showed me the screen, the transfer. I glanced at it. "That's me moving my half of our savings to a protected account." "Your half, it's our money." "Exactly," I said. "Our money, which means half of it is mine, and I'm protecting it." "Protecting it from what?" "From being spent without my knowledge or consent." His face went red. That blotchy color that started at his collar and crept up. "I don't spend our savings without telling you." I looked at him, really looked at him. Didn't say a word about the credit card debt, the cash withdrawals, the hotels, just looked. He faltered. "This is insane. You're stealing from me." "It's my money, Marcus, legally. Half of that account is mine. I'm not stealing anything. I'm making sure I have access to what's mine." "You already have access." "Do I? Because last time I checked, you're the only one with the login information to most of our accounts. You're the only one who sees the full statements. You're the only one making decisions." "Because you asked me to handle the finances," he said. 7 years ago, I said, "and things change." He stared at me like he'd never seen me before. "What's going on with you?" "I'm taking responsibility for my own financial security. Isn't that what you've always wanted? For me to be more involved?" He didn't have an answer for that, turned and walked out, slammed the door to his office. I finished folding the laundry. My hands were shaking, but I felt good, strong. I was learning that I could say no, could set a boundary, could protect myself. And the world didn't end. But Marcus knew something had shifted. He just didn't know what, and not knowing made him panic. He tried love bombing first. Came home with flowers 3 days after the savings account fight. Said he'd been thinking and maybe we should go to couples therapy, work on our communication. I said okay. Patricia had told me it would look good if we tried therapy before divorce. Plus, I was curious, wanted to see how he'd perform for a neutral third party. We went twice. He was charming, vulnerable, talked about how stressed he'd been at work, how he knew he sometimes took it out on me, how he wanted to be better. The therapist was good, though, asked pointed questions. How do you two make financial decisions? How do you divide household labor? Do you both feel you have equal say in major choices? Marcus deflected, said we were partners, said we worked together. The therapist looked at me, asked me directly, do you feel you have equal access to information about your family finances? I hesitated, glanced at Marcus. He was watching me. Not always, I said. Can you give me an example? Marcus jumped in, started explaining his system, how he managed everything to keep me from being stressed, how he gave me updates, how it was just more efficient. The therapist nodded, then asked me, is that how you describe it? No, I said. Marcus's face went hard. How would you describe it? The therapist asked. I thought about it, chose my words carefully. I'd describe it as I'm not allowed to access information about accounts with my name on them. I'm required to ask permission for purchases. I'm questioned about my spending in a way he's not questioned about his. The session went downhill from there. In the car on the way home, Marcus was silent, furious silent, the kind that felt like the air pressure changing before a storm. When we got home, he exploded, said the therapist was biased, said she was putting ideas in my head, said I was poisoning our marriage with paranoia and suspicion. Said if I kept this up, he didn't know if we could stay together. I looked at him, felt nothing. Okay, I said. He blinked. What? If you want to leave, you can leave. I'm not holding you hostage. That's not what I said. It sounded like what you said. He sputtered, tried to regroup. I'm saying we need to fix this. We need to get back to how things were. Things were unequal, I said. I don't want to go back to that. He stared at me. I could see him trying to figure out what had changed, where he'd lost control of the narrative. A week later, he initiated the conversation I'd been waiting for. We were having dinner, something I'd cooked as always. He'd been quiet, picking at his food. Then he put down his fork and said, I don't think this is working. I looked up. What isn't working? This, us, the marriage. I waited. I think we should separate, he said. Take some time apart. Figure out what we really want. I could see the calculation in his eyes. He thought this would break me. Thought I'd beg. Promise to be better, smaller, easier. Okay, I said. His expression flickered. Confusion, just okay. What else would you like me to say? He opened his mouth, closed it. I thought you'd want to talk about it. What's to talk about? You just said you want to separate. If that's what you want, then we should discuss logistics. Logistics, he repeated. Yes, who stays in the house, who leaves, how we divide assets, whether we involve lawyers now or try to work it out between us first. He looked completely thrown. I was expecting you to be upset. I am upset, I said, but being upset doesn't change anything. If you've made your decision, we should move forward. He backpedaled. I didn't say I'd made a decision. I said I think we should talk about it. You just said you wanted to separate. Maybe, he said. I don't know. I need time to think. Okay, I said. Think about it. Let me know what you decide. I stood up, started clearing plates. Where are you going? He asked. Cleaning up. I have work in the morning. Work? What work? The consulting project I told you about. I hadn't told him about the consulting project, but he didn't know that. He sat at the table looking lost while I washed dishes. That night I texted Patricia. He's panicking, threatened separation. I think he's going to pull the trigger soon. She responded immediately. Good, let him. File first if you can. Controlling the narrative matters. The next day, Marcus came home early. Found me on the laptop in the living room. I'd been apartment hunting, but I switched tabs before he saw. He sat down across from me, said we needed to talk. I closed the laptop, waited. I've been thinking, he said, about what I said last night, about separating. And I think we should do it. Not forever, just for a while. Give each other space to figure things out. I nodded, okay. That's it, just okay. What do you want me to say, Marcus? I want you to care, he said, and he sounded genuinely confused. I do care, I said, but I'm not going to beg you to stay if you don't want to be here. He looked at me like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Then he said we should have dinner tomorrow, talk through the details, somewhere neutral. Belmont's, maybe, 7 p.m. Belmont's, the expensive Italian place. Upscale, public, lots of witnesses. Perfect. Sure, I said. He looked relieved, probably thought he was regaining control. Thought he'd have me sitting across from him at a nice restaurant while he laid out his terms. Magnanimous, generous. The bigger person letting his incompetent wife down easy. He had no idea I'd been planning this for 8 months. No idea that I'd already consulted a lawyer, copied every document, built a financial safety net that dwarfed anything in our joint accounts. No idea that tomorrow, the day after our dinner at Belmont's, he'd be served with divorce papers at his office. That night I packed the last of the things I cared about into my car. Photos, my grandmother's jewelry, documents, my laptop. Picked out an outfit for dinner, not to impress him, not to prove anything. Just to feel like myself. Texted Patricia, tomorrow night, Belmont's at 7. He doesn't know it yet, but this is the end. She sent back a simple response, go get him. I sat in my car in the garage and looked at my phone, opened the banking app, looked at my account balance, $86,347.29. Money I'd earned, saved, protected. Money he didn't know existed. Proof that I'd already survived without him. I just needed him to figure it out. I got to Belmont's at 7 on the dot. Marcus was already there, sitting at a table near the window. Good table. He'd planned this, wanted to be seen. Wanted the optics of the successful husband having a mature conversation with his wife at an upscale restaurant. He stood when I walked up, pulled out my chair. The performance had already started. I sat, ordered water. He ordered a bottle of wine without asking if I wanted any. $40 bottle. I'd seen the menu online. He was wearing his navy suit, the one that made him feel powerful. His tie was the one I'd bought him for Christmas 2 years ago with money I'd had to budget for over 3 months. The waiter brought the wine. Marcus did the whole routine, sniffed the cork, swirled the glass, tasted, nodded his approval like he was doing everyone a favor. Poured me a glass I hadn't asked for. So he said, here we are. Here we are, I agreed. He launched into the speech he'd clearly prepared. He'd been doing a lot of thinking, about us, about what we both needed. He cared about me, wanted me to be happy, but he wasn't sure we were right for each other anymore. I sipped my water and listened. He said he'd been unhappy for a while, that I'd changed, become distant, difficult to talk to. He'd tried, really tried, but he couldn't keep carrying the emotional weight of the relationship alone. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so perfectly on brand. Then he got to the point. He thought we should divorce, amicably. He'd worked out what he thought was fair. Pulled out his phone, showed me notes he'd typed up. I could keep my car. He'd give me 60 days to find a new place to live, stay in the house until then. He'd give me $20,000 from savings to help me get started. $20,000. From the account that had 80 in it before I moved half to a protected account 2 weeks ago. In exchange, he'd keep the house, his retirement accounts. The rest of the savings, we'd split the furniture. Obviously, I could take whatever I wanted within reason. He sat back, looked at me expectantly. I'm being generous, he said. I know you're going to need help starting over. You haven't worked full-time in years. Your consulting income is inconsistent. This will give you a cushion. I nodded slowly. That does seem generous. He looked relieved. I'm glad you see it that way. I know this is hard, but I think it's the right thing for both of us. The waiter came back. Marcus ordered for both of us. He always ordered for both of us. Steak for him, Salmon for me because he'd decided years ago that I liked salmon even though I'd told him multiple times I preferred chicken. I didn't correct him. After the waiter left, I reached into my bag, pulled out the folder I'd brought. Actually, I said, there are a few things we should probably discuss before we finalize anything. Like what? Like assets and debts. I slid the first page across the table. Bank statement from our joint checking. 6 months' worth. I'd highlighted the relevant lines in yellow. He glanced down, then looked up at me. What is this? Cash withdrawals, I said. $300 a week, every week for 6 months. That's $7,200. Where did that money go? His face went carefully neutral. I needed cash for various things. What things? That's really not relevant. I think it is, I said. Since it's community property, our money, I'm just trying to understand where our money went. He pushed the paper back toward me. I'm not doing this. I'm not being interrogated. I pulled out the next page. Venmo transactions, A. Simmons, highlighted. And these, lunch on me. Thanks for last night, you're the best. Who's A. Simmons? A colleague. Why are you sending a colleague money with messages like thanks for last night? His jaw tightened. You're being paranoid. I added another page to the pile. Hotel receipts. The Monroe, the Ashland, dates highlighted. These hotels, they don't match your business travel calendar, I cross-referenced. You've been tracking me. I've been reviewing our credit card statements, which I'm entitled to do since my name is on the account. People at nearby tables were starting to glance over. Marcus noticed, lowered his voice. I don't know what you think you're proving here. I'm not trying to prove anything, I said. I'm just making sure we have all the information before we discuss asset division. I pulled out my phone, opened Instagram, showed him Ashley Simmons's profile, the photo from the Monroe's rooftop bar. Your colleague has good taste in hotels, I said. His face drained of color. I put the phone down, added another document to the pile, credit card statement, the Discover card I wasn't supposed to know about. And this, $42,000 in debt, on a card in both our names. That's interesting because I don't remember applying for this card, but apparently I'm liable for half this debt. How did you? Community property, I said. I have a legal right to access financial information about accounts with my name on them. He was sweating now, small beads at his hairline. I pulled out the Cartier receipt, smoothed it on the table between us. $3,200. I called the store, asked about the engraving. To A, Forever M, that's sweet. Was it for an anniversary, her anniversary with you? Stop, he said. But I wasn't done. I pulled out the mortgage documents, the car loan, highlighted sections showing my credit score, my inheritance as the down payment, my name on the loan that he'd said was his car. This house, $60,000 down payment from my inheritance. This car, financed on my credit because yours wasn't good enough. These retirement accounts. Mine is fully funded. Yours was cashed out in 2019 for a failed investment. I laid them all out, one by one. A paper trail of every lie he'd told, every time he'd said I couldn't survive without him while literally surviving on my money, my credit, my contributions. His hands were shaking. You told me I'd never survive without you, I said. My voice was calm, flat. But do you see what I see here, Marcus? Because what I see is a man who's been surviving on his wife's inheritance, his wife's credit score, his wife's retirement contributions while spending marital funds on hotels and jewelry for his girlfriend and telling his wife she's too incompetent to manage money. That's not, he started, stopped, couldn't figure out how to finish. The waiter appeared with our food, set the plates down. Marcus waved him away. I actually filed for divorce 2 days ago, I said. You'll be served Monday morning at your office. My lawyer is pursuing a fault-based settlement due to your affair and financial dishonesty. I'm seeking return of my separate property inheritance, a larger share of the home equity, and I'm asking that you be solely responsible for the debt you incurred without my knowledge. You can't, he said. I can, and I am. This is insane. You're being vindictive. I'm being practical. You wanted a divorce. I'm giving you one, just not on your terms. People were definitely watching now. I could see the couple at the next table leaning in, pretending to look at their menus. Marcus tried to recover, lowered his voice, leaned forward. Baby, let's not do this here. We can talk about this at home, work something out. You don't need lawyers. We can be adults about this. We tried being adults, I said. Adults have equal access to financial information. Adults make decisions together. Adults don't lie about where money goes. I made mistakes, he said. I'll admit that. The thing with Ashley, it didn't mean anything. I'll end it. We can go to therapy, real therapy, make this work. No, I said. Just like that. 7 years and you're just done. I've been done for months, Marcus. I've just been getting my ducks in a row. His face twisted. You've been planning this whole time. The attitude, the boundaries, all of it, you've been planning to leave. I've been planning to survive, I said. You told me I couldn't. I wanted to make sure I could. The waiter came back, hovering, uncertain, asked if everything was okay with the food. We haven't touched it, Marcus snapped. The waiter retreated, came back a minute later with the check, clearly wanted us gone. Marcus grabbed it, not even looking, just pure reflex. The need to be the one who pays, who provides, who has the power. He pulled out his wallet, slid out his Amex, the black one he was so proud of. Handed it to the waiter, without looking at the total. The waiter walked away, came back 30 seconds later, face apologetic. Sir, I'm sorry, this card was declined. Marcus froze. That's impossible, he said. Try it again. The waiter tried again, came back, same apologetic expression. Still declined, sir. The table next to us had gone completely quiet. Marcus's neck was doing that thing, red creeping up from his collar. He pulled out another card. Visa, handed it over. Same result. Declined. He tried a third card. Discover, the one with $42,000 in debt on it. Declined. The waiter was visibly uncomfortable now. Sir, do you have another form of payment? Marcus was sputtering, sweating. This is impossible. There's been some kind of mistake. These cards are all active. There's no reason. He trailed off, looked at me. I'd already pulled out my phone, opened the payment app connected to my private account, the one he didn't know existed. Let me get it, I said. I held my phone to the reader. It beeped, cheerful little chirp. Approved, $387.50. The notification flashed on my screen. For just a second before I closed it, the balance was visible. Available balance, $86,347.29. Marcus's eyes went wide. He stared at the screen, at me, back at the screen. Where the hell did you get that money? I earned it, I said, stood up, picked up my purse. The past 8 months, while you've been spending our money on Ashley and telling me I'd never survive without you, I've been working. Full time. I'm a creative director now. Salary, benefits, the whole thing. And every dollar I made went into an account you couldn't touch. That's my money, he said. Marital property. Actually, earnings after separation are considered separate property in California. And I've been separated from you emotionally for 8 months. Physically separating is just a formality at this point. I pulled 2 20s from my wallet, left them on the table for the waiter's tip. He didn't deserve to be collateral damage in this. You can't do this, Marcus said. His voice was loud now. People at 3 or 4 tables were openly starring. I already did, I said. You'll never make it. You think you're so smart, but you have no idea how hard it's going to be. You're going to come crawling back and I won't be there. I looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd spent years making me small, making me doubt myself, making me believe I needed him. I survived, Marcus, past tense. I've been doing it for 8 months. You just didn't notice. I walked out. Behind me, I could hear him calling my name. Not loud, not quite, just this confused, almost hurt sound. I didn't turn around. Got in my car, drove to my sister's house. She told me I could stay there until I signed the lease on my apartment. When I pulled into her driveway, I just sat there for a minute, hands on the steering wheel, breathing. Then I started laughing. Not bitter, not angry. Just free. The divorce took 4 months. His lawyer tried to fight the fault-based settlement, claimed I didn't have sufficient evidence of an affair. My lawyer buried them in documentation. Hotel receipts, Venmo payments, Instagram posts, witness statements from the Cartier store employee, phone records showing hundreds of texts to Ashley's number. They tried to claim half my income from the 8 months I'd been working. My lawyer shut it down. Post-separation earnings. I had documentation showing I'd opened the account, started the work, all while he was actively conducting an affair. I was protecting myself from financial harm. Asset division took longer. He wanted to keep the house, claimed he couldn't afford to buy me out. My lawyer pointed out that the $60,000 down payment came from my inheritance, separate property. I was entitled to full reimbursement, plus half the equity that had built up since. He'd have to refinance or sell. He tried to refinance, couldn't get approved. His credit was wrecked from the debt, and without my score, he didn't qualify. The house went on the market. We split the proceeds. After my inheritance reimbursement, there was another $40,000 in equity, $20,000 for each of us. Retirement accounts split down the middle, except his was nearly empty from the early withdrawal, so there wasn't much to split. The $42,000 in credit card debt. His lawyer tried to make me liable for half. My lawyer argued that I'd had no knowledge of the card, had never used it, and significant portions of the debt were directly traceable to his affair. The judge agreed. The debt was his problem. His family called me. His mother, his sister, said I was being cruel, vindictive. He'd made mistakes, but I was destroying him. I didn't engage, just said I'm protecting myself. If you'd like to see the documentation of what I'm protecting myself from, I'm happy to share it. His mother said that wouldn't be necessary. Her voice was cold. I never heard from her again. Our mutual friends split. Some took his side, believed his version where I'd ambushed him, trapped him, been secretly planning to take everything. A few reached out to me privately, asked what really happened. I didn't trash talk him, didn't give details, just said I needed to protect myself financially. I'm sure he has his version, I have mine. Most of them figured it out eventually. Ashley broke up with him 3 weeks after the restaurant. Mutual friends reported back, thought I'd want to know. Apparently, once his financial situation became clear, once he wasn't the successful provider but a divorced man with debt and no house, she lost interest. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt nothing. She wasn't the problem. He was. And he'd still be the problem in his next relationship, with the next woman he decided to control. But that wasn't my concern anymore. He tried once to get me back, showed up at my apartment 2 months after I'd moved in. I was still unpacking boxes, still figuring out how to arrange furniture in a space that was a quarter the size of the house. He had flowers, grocery store flowers, which told me everything about his current financial state. He'd been crying, eyes red, face puffy. Said he'd made a terrible mistake. Said we could go to therapy, really work on things this time. He'd be better, more transparent, equal partners. Please, he said, we can fix this. I stood in my doorway, didn't invite him in. No, I said. You can't just throw away 7 years, he said. I'm not throwing them away. I'm learning from them. Baby, please, I love you. I'll do anything. You had years to do anything, I said. You chose to do what you did. I'm choosing to do this. He grabbed my hand. I pulled it back. You can't make it without me, he said, and there was something desperate in his voice, like he was trying to convince both of us. I already am, I said. I have been, and I will keep doing it. This is a mistake. You're going to regret this. Maybe, I said, but it's my mistake to make. He stood there, deflating, the flowers drooping in his hand. Don't contact me again, I said. If you need to communicate about the divorce, go through my lawyer. Closed the door, locked it, Stood there listening to him stand on the other side for a long minute. Then his footsteps, walking away. I never saw him again. The final decree came through on a Tuesday. I was at work. My lawyer emailed me the signed paperwork. I looked at it during my lunch break. Sitting in my office, the one with my name on the door, eating a salad I'd bought without asking anyone's permission. Dissolution of marriage. Asset division complete. No alimony either direction. Clean break. I was single, financially independent, free. That night I took myself to dinner. Nothing fancy. Just a local Thai place near my apartment. Use the app to pay. Watch the notification. Approved. Smiled. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my one-bedroom apartment writing this. It's small. The kitchen has maybe 4 feet of counter space. I can hear my neighbor's television through the wall sometimes. It's perfect. The walls are the color I wanted. Soft gray-blue. I have plants on the windowsill, basil and mint, and a fern that's somehow still alive. There's art on the walls that I picked out. A bookshelf full of books I bought because I wanted them. My name is on the lease, just mine. I know exactly what the rent costs, what utilities run, what I spend on groceries. Every dollar in my account is a dollar I can see, track, access. The job with Jennifer is everything I needed. I'm doing work I'm good at, work that challenges me. My team respects me. My clients value me. I make more now than Marcus, and I combined made during the marriage. I ran into him once, 3 months ago. Coffee shop downtown. He was with someone new, younger. She had that same carefully curated aesthetic that Ashley had. He looked smaller somehow, tired. I nodded politely, didn't stop to chat, ordered my coffee, $8, didn't think twice about it. Later, I thought about the woman he was with, wondered if he was doing the same thing to her. The slow erosion of financial independence, the allowances, the questioning, the "you'll never survive without me." I hoped not. But that was her journey to figure out. I think about who I was at the beginning of this. The woman who asked permission to buy a book, who had her card declined at a coffee shop, who believed her husband when he said she was incompetent. That woman is still in here somewhere, but she's buried under 8 months of spreadsheets and strategy, under a bank account balance that proves she was always capable, under the muscle memory of saying no and meaning it. Financial abuse is quiet. That's what makes it so insidious. It doesn't leave bruises you can photograph. It leaves you questioning your own competence, your own worth, your own ability to function in the world. Someone who loves you doesn't make you ask permission to exist. Someone who loves you doesn't weaponize your dependence. Someone who loves you doesn't say you'll never survive without them, because that's not love, that's fear. They're afraid you'll figure out that they need you more than you need them. If I could go back and tell my younger self anything, it would be this. Always have your own account, even if you never touch it, even if it sits there with $20 in it for years. Have it. Know your family's finances, all of them. If someone tells you you don't need to worry about the money stuff, worry about the money stuff. Your name is on those accounts. You have a legal right to information. Exercise it. Document everything. Screenshots, emails, receipts, conversations, dates and times and specific quotes. You might never need it. But if you do, you'll be glad you have it. Read what you sign. Every word, every piece of paper. Know what you're agreeing to. And this, if someone tells you you're not capable of something you know in your bones you are, that's not reality. That's control. You get to decide what you're capable of, not them. The power to leave is the power to stay on your terms. I didn't leave because I stopped loving Marcus. I left because I started loving myself. I survived today. That means I can survive tomorrow. You can too. If you've ever been told you're not capable, not smart enough, not strong enough to make it on your own, I want to hear about it. Drop a comment. Tell me where you're listening from. Tell me your story. And if you're in the thick of it right now, if you're the woman with the joint account you can't access, or the husband who reviews your spending, or the voice in your head saying you'll never make it alone, I need you to hear this. You will make it. You're making it right now. Every day you survive is proof. Hit subscribe if you believe financial independence isn't a privilege. It's a right. If you think competence hidden is still competence. If you know that the sound of a card declining can be the sweetest sound in the world when it's not your card. I'm sitting here in my small apartment with my plants and my art, and my name on the lease. Looking at my phone, at the banking app, at the balance that proves I didn't just survive. I thrived. The screen glows. Approved.